Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to this week's episode of the weekly hoscale newsletter recaps for February 3rd, 2025. We've got some cool things to take a look at this week, and before we do, as always, do me a favor and subscribe if you're new or if you find yourself coming back anyways. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much in advance. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if there's anything here you find interesting, anything you're thinking of ordering, or if I missed anything, of course. So we'll go ahead and start with the Broadway flyer from January 2025. As you can see, we got a little summary at the top, nice little message here from Curtis, and a recap of some of the new product announcements from the Amherst show. They announced the Boston and Albany A1A and A1B Berkshires in HO scale. There's a little bit of history and some model shots of the renders. They do note here on this shot here that this is not the final green color, it's just the best they can do, but it looks really cool. I'm considering buying one, even though, like I said last week, I don't really have a reason to buy one. I just think they look really sweet. There's also a Lima Locomotive Works version as well. It's a little bit on the history and some features. Offered Paragon 4 or in Stealth with the speaker installed. Order deadline for these is coming up on July 10th of 2025, hoping for delivery in the spring of 2026. Their second Amherst announcement was an N scale model, the Baldwin Shark Noses, that they've already released in HO scale and they sold pretty well, so they brought them to N scale as well. Move a little bit quickly through here. Yeah, not an N scale guy, but I'll show it when it comes up. Renders look pretty good. I heard good things about the first run of these, nothing major in terms of paint or performance on the HO scale, so I assume these N scale models will function just as well. Also Paragon 4 or their Stealth series, DC, DCC ready with a speaker already installed, and the same order deadline of July 10th, and same estimated delivery of next spring. Now onto some new things here, a little bit of project updates on some models. I'll just pause here and let you take a look. If you have any of these on order, just an update. For me, I'm paying attention to the Kenefick business cars. Looks like they were delayed just a little bit longer, so approximately mid-March is when you should have them on your layout. Estimated February delivery to the factory. And I know a lot of you have some of the business cars as well. Those will be showing up in April. And we should see some samples of their Class D Shay in HO scale, which should be pretty sweet. Excited to take a look at how those look. I know some of you are also very interested in that for logging railroads and such. Definitely making sure on their part that it can navigate those 18-inch curves. That's their reasoning for why it's taking a little bit longer than expected. A little bit of in the news, another review of the full diecast SD70 ACEs recently delivered from BLI. This one is from the Steam channel. And BLI will do a little bit of a tour of their own. Here's some shows they'll be at. If you're in the area or thinking about going to those shows already, BLI will be there. And a little bit of an update section on some of these samples. My favorite, like I mentioned, the Kenefick business cars. They took a little bit extra time to make sure they were perfectly matched to the Walthers Proto cars. So here are some final shots of these cars with different drum heads. The one I picked up and the one that I should be publishing a review very shortly after I get it has the Big Boy Tour emblem from this past year. And a reminder, they are also doing the Power Car and the Fox River inspection car. I recently put my pre-order in for those. I'll be getting the modern version of the Fox River with the antennas, as well as the more modern Power Car with the antennas as well to match. I decided to go with the non-sound Power Car just because I'm not a big fan of sound in cars. I'd rather have it in the locomotives, but it's completely up to you. Take your pick, whichever one you prefer. They do also make a note that they will be hoping to announce some models of the BNSF, CSX, or NS cars as well, so that should be really sweet to see. Might pick up a couple BNSF cars to run with the heritage units. That'd be pretty neat. But stay tuned to see when those are announced. Moving on, another steam locomotive. They're PRR B6SBs. These look pretty sharp. I don't have any of these on order, but for any of you Pensy modelers, these should be arriving around early July. And here is a cool teaser for the Santa Fe 2900 class, the Northerns. I'm very interested in this because the Illinois Railway Museum has one. Of course, one of them is still operational over in New Mexico. So here are some of the early renders of the locomotive. I think this might be my first BLI steam locomotive because it's at the Illinois Railway Museum. And one of my goals potentially with my collection is to own as many models that have been released of real life models at the Illinois Railway Museum that I've seen. So it's a cool little side project. And I think this model should be really good. They have two different options for the smokestack that'll be included in the box. You get the short or the tall, and you can run whichever one you like, and a couple different schemes as the excursion version of the 2926 or in-service versions. There'll be a little difference, but it's not fully announced yet. Still early renders, but this is a really neat project that I'm excited for. Next up, the full delivery schedule. I'll go ahead and move fairly quick, but make sure all the details are on here. Just an update for any of these models that you may have on order. The big boy deadline did just pass us this last week, and those were all only ordered based on pre-orders, so there's no extra models that they ordered, which is an interesting way for them to do it, but maybe that's reducing the amount of big boys just floating around there since there's a decent offering in the market. So there's all of those. Here's a little note on tariffs. Still not sure how it's going to affect the industry. Can only really hope that it's not going to happen for a multitude of reasons, and I'll go into it. We'll move in here to a little Q&A section as well that BLI always ends off their recaps with. Little information on the prototype testing, which is pretty neat. You can pause and take a look at that. They're considering doing other heavyweight passenger cars beyond the heavyweights and the PRR schemes that they are currently working on, as well as Erie Berkshires or just really anything Erie. This one's an interesting one. They are building the Chicago Northwestern Executive F units alongside the Norfolk Southern Executive units. So we'll see how well those sell, and they'll consider adding even more of the executive fleets for those railroads. Of course, the Union Pacific is very popular. It'd be really cool to see that 951, the current E9, on the executive fleet, but that's not currently in their works. Talking a little bit about the most complicated car to model up in the heritage fleet being the power car, since there's no original drawings or blueprints. And they have not officially announced, but the Silver Pilot, the E5 streamlined Burlington Zephyr locomotives. So it'd be cool to see a full passenger car set do pull that. That's again another Illinois Railway Museum real life train, so that'd be another cool thing for me to add to my collection. And just a little bit more about other inspection cars that we touched on, considering adding CBKC, Norfolk Southern, all based on the Fox River tooling there that they picked up. That's pretty cool. Wrapping up Broadway Limited here, we'll move on next over to Athearn. All right, over in the Athearn dispatcher for this past week, first model up, an announcement from the Amherst show, new GP7, GP7Ls, and GP8s. I'll let these cycle through the paint schemes here. We talked about them in detail in the last video, so if you're interested in the full breakdown of all the road numbers, check that out. I don't want to waste too much time in repeating the information here. There's all those schemes. They look pretty good. Again, Genesis line, so they're top of the line stuff. A little bit of shipping updates here for models expected in March. First up, the GP15-1s and GP15Ts. We'll take a quick look at these paint schemes in detail in a second. I'll let them play through here just to get a little preview of the different offerings, and then we'll take a closer look. All right, here is the product page for this release. This is fully in their Genesis 2.0 line with the lit glass lights and number boards, all in DCC. First up, the CSX offerings, a couple different variations on them, different fuel tank colors and pilots. Conrails next with the -1s, not the Ts here. This was the locomotive that in their original product shots of them in development had one of the ditch lights either out or mid horn blast that people were criticizing them for, but I'm sure the models will work out of the box as best they can. Missouri Pacific is up next here. Just one shown, but 3 road numbers there for you, as well as Rock Island, just one offering. It's an ex-Chicago Northwestern unit. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that Chicago Northwestern ever bought any of these, but that's cool to know. And a couple legendary liveries. First one, Southern Pacific. And we also have the Rio Grande as well. Both of these have gyro lights in different spots, and the Southern Pacific also has the UDE light, the emergency light. And final paint scheme, another name that might trip me up here, the Apalachicola Northern. Hopefully I nailed that, but 2 out of their 3 GP15Ts offered in this run. And I'll show you quickly here the full feature list of them in case you're interested. But we'll hop back over to the newsletter now. That's the only model there for March. Thank you for going to Amherst and supporting all these manufacturers as well. First up, they had some different demos on display, different models in various stages of production and samples. First up, the 260s in their standard Athearn line. Those look alright. They're a little bit basic because they're not fully in the Genesis line. But some models in the Genesis line that we'll take a quick look at are the SD90 Mac H's and SD89 Mac. Alright, we'll start with the product page here for the 90 Mac H's. As it calls out at the top, this is the first time with rotating bearing caps, but these models do also have the ground lights and lit number boards as appropriate. First up, Union Pacific schemes. Top one's the only one that ever got the UP wings, which is pretty neat. And the bottom model there's 2 road numbers in a legendary livery, which is the modern UP paint scheme. So as if they didn't have any testing problems and such, and they did actually like them and kept them around, this is what they might look like now. Next up, we got CP, 2 road numbers in this paint scheme. And another legendary livery, the EMD Demo. 2 of those are offered. And here's a look at the features on these models. Not a lot of road names because not a lot of roads picked up this locomotive, so pretty accurate in that sense, but looks pretty good, standard Athearn Genesis features. And as for the SD89 Mac, brand new model for them, only 2 offerings here, one in the EMD demo scheme and one painted unlettered model. Because this is also accurate, they only ever created one of these SD89 Macs, so that's that EMD demo there. And I'll just show you quickly the features. They are exactly the same as the 90 Mac H's, but in case you're interested, they have a little bit more prototype information on this one. Let's jump back over to the newsletter. Moving on. I do want to take a quick look at these Genesis FP units. Pause just a second for you to take in that picture. And also we'll piggyback right into taking a look at the Genesis NSC 6000 gondolas as well. Alright, here is the product page for the FP units. I'm a big fan of F units and I just wanted to take a second to talk about them. First one is the Amtrak scheme. These are all patched over units. The only one that's not a Southern Pacific unit is the B unit in the center there, number 399. That's an XBN unit. So you'll see features specific to Southern Pacific like those icicle breakers on top of the A units. And just to call it out beforehand, these units are $20 more expensive than the other units in this run, presumably because of the patch jobs, but no direct explanation is given. That's just my guess. Next up, we've got Conrail in a couple different variations. You'll see the one on the bottom has the water tank underneath. It's the only one to have that. In the center has the Penn Central logo still in the nose. And then we've got a couple EMD demo units as well. You'll notice it calls out some of these are offered as an A-B set or just B units or just A units. Like the CP, all we have are A units here, but 3 offerings. Next up, the passenger scheme of the Milwaukee Road, the orange and black. And a couple southern units, all A units here as well. And the Chicago and Eastern Illinois, kind of an interesting choice for the road name to include in the scheme, but cool to see it. Don't see this too often. And finally, here is the full feature list on these locomotives. Looks pretty good. And here's, if I scroll down just a little more, some prototype info if you're interested in that as well. Again, here's a reminder on the pricing at the bottom that the Amtrak units are more expensive than the other ones in this run. And the last model we'll take a look at here from Athearn this week are the Genesis NSC 6000 gondolas that do come with a load. Like it calls out there, brand new model for Athearn. 3 different road names here with a couple different road numbers. You'll see there are sets as well. You can get a 2-car set in each. Here's a look at the features on the model, as well as their early renders with the load in the car. You can see you save a little bit of money if you buy them as a 2-pack. Otherwise, they're $65 as individuals. And back into the newsletter, just a reminder of the product samples. We have painted versions of the FP units and just early unpainted NSC gondolas down below. An N-scale car is also featured, fully painted up, the 13,000 gallon acid tank car. And a model that we did take a look at pretty in depth about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the ICC caboose, so I won't fully review it, but this is a production sample here, completely unpainted. You can see some of the extra etched metal add-ons on these cars. Another caboose that does come with DCC compatible lights out of the box and with sound as well, if you would like to get that option. Here's a cool signboard fully lit up. That could be a good addition to maybe a movie theater or some outdoor type restaurant. Pretty cool to see. And some more shots here from the team at Amherst. Here from Athearn for this week, we'll move on now over to ScaleTrains. Alright, over here in the ScaleTrains newsletter, starts off with an N-scale model. The GP30s are now in the stock in N-scale. I'll let them play through just because I think they look pretty neat. They look, from this angle, pretty much the exact same as the HO models. The only dead giveaway is the couplers are a little bit larger here than the HO. But looks pretty good. Heard good things about the HO release, so these N-scale ones I expect should be about the same quality. Little update on paying for those pre-orders on the GP30s. And down to the GP40s. Talking about the Rio Grande versions, I do have Milwaukee Road that I did a review on that I'm still very happy with. Very cool release. It's ScaleTrains' first run of these GP40s. And here's a little bit of history on the Rio Grande version, as well as the other road names and paint schemes still available. The Milwaukee Road is fully sold out. There's limited availability in some of the other paint schemes. So I'd recommend taking advantage of those quickly if you're looking to pick those up. And they put out a time to model little blurb about the trendy 7500 plug door box cars. This is highlighting some of the differences between the rivet counter and operator series, as well as just seeing differences between different road names on the prototype. And the pre-orders for those models are due this upcoming Monday, the 10th of February. Here's the operator release of them. This is a Norfolk Southern feature on these. And some detail shots that we have seen before, nothing new from last week. And they got a quantity buy pricing if you order them directly through ScaleTrains. And of course, they're also doing these in the rivet counter line. So here's a couple of those paint schemes offered. You got the TTX and the GATX versions flashing by there. We've taken a look at the BNSF before. That was featured last week. But just another reminder, same order deadline of February 10th for this model. A little bit different quantity buy pricing that kicks in at 12 models instead of 6 for the operator. And another order deadline of next Monday are the SD40-2 new run. Here's a feature on the CSX version in the YN2 scheme. First time they've done that. A lot of these models do have ditch lights, which is very cool to see. It's a little bit of history on the CSX version in particular, as well as all of the road names and paint schemes. I know the Burlington Northern Whiteface will be extremely popular, so if you're considering at all buying one of those models, I would recommend pre-ordering them because I expect those to sell out pretty quick once the models arrive. So just a heads up on that, and of course all the other road names here, if you're interested, definitely jump on board while you can during the pre-order phase. In an announcement in their S-Scale line, the ACF 40-foot woodside reefer. Won't spend too much time because it's a scale that not too many people are involved with. A little bit of history and some model features. Nice to see they highlight that they're American Flyer compatible. I have some old American Flyer trains that if I did Model S scale still, that's what I would be concerned about, just to make sure that they do match up. Next up, an N scale release, the SD40T-2 tunnel motors. A couple different variations you can see going by. This is most of the road numbers and road names in the scheme. A little bit of history on them. And the full list of the road names and paint schemes. These pre-orders are due a little bit later, Monday, February 24th, and they should be here in late summer. Again, N-scale model. The HO scale model should be here sometime in February, I'm hoping. I have 2 of those on order, Rio Grande schemes, so that'll be pretty sweet. Can't wait for those. And another Amherst announcement. Going alongside the GP30Ms and GP30Us, we have the BN GP39E rebuilds. This newsletter features the Burlington Northern version, a little bit of history on them. A lot of these rebuilds, first time they've been produced in plastic. They're highlighting different features here, such as the Burlington Northern Crossing strobe lights, which is a precursor to ditch lights, so slightly different. There's those road names. They are also all due for pre-orders by Monday, February 24th. Same estimated late summer delivery on these as well. Moving on to another Amherst announcement, the SD7Rs. This is highlighting a lot of the different deliveries of the Southern Pacific versions. Move on down here to let you take a look at a ton of this history that they provide. And I think I'll probably end up buying one of these, number 1518, which is part of the second order of the units, which is the EMD demo number 990. So it's got some different features on it compared to the others in the run, and of course it is preserved still at the IRM. So that's really my reasoning for picking it up. As talked about it before, it'd be really cool to have all of the IRM's locos in HO scale. Cool little side project. Something interesting that I need help on. I don't know if the Southern Pacific 1518 still retains its dual control stands. It was built with the dual control stands when it was an EMD demo, but I'm pretty sure that those were removed when it was rebuilt by Southern Pacific. The current model does not have the UDE light and the extra lights on both ends, but this model does, so it's still pretty cool to see. Not exactly current day operation, but it's nice to have those extra lights, of course. And if you're interested in picking up the other ones, such as the Portland and Western models as well, that survived a decent bit, some of them are still around. But here's some information on the models of those in the SD7, and it's a little typo there at the bottom that should say SD9 for the Conrail and the two Norfolk Southern versions, one with ditch lights. These pre-orders for all the SD7s, SD7Rs, and SD9s are due on Monday, February 24th, like the other models that we've talked about. And an update on the delivery schedule for their models. One in N scale there, the Trinity Reefers in N scale. Still very happy with the two runs of HO scale that I still have. They are doing another one, so you still might be able to jump on pre-orders for that. In HO scale, the one I have coming are the SD40T-2s in the Rio Grande scheme. But if you have any of the other pieces of rolling stock there, the covered hoppers or the exact rail box cars, those are also slated to arrive in mid-February. And a little update on their show schedule. They've got a couple different stops coming up in the next few weeks. A little bit of recap on Amherst. Thanks for attending, of course. That's all we have here from ScaleTrains. We'll go ahead and move on now over to Class 1 Modelworks. From Class 1 Modelworks, we just have a quick update about their 4-door Thrall 86-foot high cube box cars. A couple new arrivals here coming up. Just wanted to note, if you do order them through Class 1 before they arrive as a pre-order, you will save, as they call 9%, really it's $10. It'll be $59.99 instead of $69.99. So we've got Chicago Northwestern up top, as well as Western Pacific, New York Central, and Union Pacific here at the bottom. So these look great. First run was well received, so I assume the second run will also look pretty good as well. But that's all we have here, just a quick update from them. We'll move on now over to Walthers. All right, over here in Walthers' e-update, first one that we've talked about before, the Proto 50-foot double door box cars. Love that sharp red Burlington route scheme. These should be arriving in the summer. Next up, we've got the mainline 89-foot flat cars. Athearn is also coming out with their Genesis line release of these, so might be able to compare some of those when those arrive. But still, full die-cast frame here from Walthers mainline, which is really the important part, because if you're running this unloaded, you'll want it to not derail because it's too late in case you're in the middle of a consist with this car. Next up, the Proto FP7s. I know we just talked about the Athearn release of some FP7s. I do have a couple F7s from Walthers that I need to do a review on. They're in the Southern Pacific Black Widow scheme, one of my favorites. So I will need to get around to doing that because I really like those models and want to share those. But still, smooth drive trains from Walthers Proto coming with Lockdown 5 if you buy the DCC version, and the small little features like having figures already in the cab which looks nice. And I think the Walthers Proto snowplows are some of the best, so just my thoughts on that. We've already taken a look at the new release of F units from Bowser. Those should be delivering here the next couple of weeks. They come with sort of the features we already expect with these higher tier models, like the extra air hoses. Some of the models have snowplows, like this Union Pacific version here, as well as the full LED package with Locksound 5 or DCC ready. Rapido also called out their new release of the Turbo Train in their update last week. This is one of the versions here that's offered. Some of them are offered in this 3-car set, some of them have 5, or you can buy the 3-car and get add-on sets, such as with the Via Rail. Full interior lighting, they should run better than the last one, and they've got gyro lights on the fronts as well. Next, I wanted to quickly revisit a Rapido release that's coming up because something changed and I don't remember if I ever called this out. This is their 72-foot Greenbrier reefer, which looks really sharp. A little bit of history on this and the features. They come with sound or silent. But here's the part that I wanted to call out. They're offering the same 6-packs or single cars where you get a random car in the set, or you can specifically call out which car you would want out of the set. So originally I had picked up on pre-order the ScaleTrains Orange End 6-pack because that was just my favorite. I preferred it overall. I thought I'd be happy with it. Going with the non-sound versions of these, but I went ahead and canceled that order with Lombard Hobbies, and I picked up a couple individual cars in the orange end as well as the yellow end, and a couple in the Lineage Shield scheme. Of course, the Lineage models are a little bit newer, a little bit different. They're ordered in a second run, but still they continue the tradition of having the names on the cards, which I thought was really cool. So that's why I went with some of those. And just a reminder of the other paint schemes offered in this run. These ones do not have differences that you can order a single car only because they're pretty much all the same. They're not different in terms of names on the cars, just different road numbers. So you can still get the 6-pack or single cars for everything except Ontario Northland, which you just have a 3-pack or single car on these. Still no estimated delivery date on these cars. Really excited for them. I hope they turn out pretty good and will run well with the ScaleTrains reefers that I got as well. And just a quick reminder of 2 more Rapido order deadlines coming up on February 17th. The first one is this Greenbrier Transverse Coil car. Here is the first production sample that we can see here. There's a list of all of the details on the right side of your screen. They come in 7 different paint schemes, offered both as a single car or as a 6-pack. Those are going to run you $60 for the single car or $360 for the 6-pack. Not real discount there on the quantity buy pricing. But this looks pretty good for the first production sample. Nice underbody detail. Looks like all the features from the renders seem to have made it over, so good news there. And the second order reminder is for the C36-7s and the BNC33-7s in this same run. They're all the paint schemes there on the screen. A couple things to keep in mind. These do come with step lights, just like their recent release of C30-7s, which is really cool. So I do hope they bring those to other models moving forward. Also, lighted control stand, Locksound B5, and your standard Rapido underbody detail. That looks really good. So, just another reminder there. Order deadline of February 17th. But that's all here for Rapido. We'll move on over to Kadee. Next up, wanted to feature Kadee for the first time on the channel. Of course, they are the self-proclaimed coupler people. Just wanted to feature their newsletter here just to bring them into the fold. First up, they're featuring the hoscale starter kit that they offer. Lots of different options for couplers, as well as some gearboxes, screws, and some additional tools offered in the kit. So really a good starter kit that'll really get you going, and also really importantly, help you figure out which coupler is right for different pieces of rolling stock, different passenger cars, different locomotives, just to make sure you buy the whole pack of the correct ones when it comes to be that time. But Kadee also offers their own line of freight cars. So they do have a new model in stock. It's a 2003 cubic foot PS2 hopper. This one here is featured in the Rio Grande scheme. But on the right, we got Northern Pacific and some other different paint schemes on the right, as well as a little feature of the other box cars they still have in stock, as well as a hopper and some undecorated models as well. Now, Kadee also announced a new model at the Amherst show, that being the 50-ton AAR flat car. Unfortunately, I haven't found any manufacturer shots from them on Facebook or on their website. I don't want to rip off other people and take their photos without their consent or anything. So this is just an update. Once I see some pictures from Kadee about that model, I'll feature them on the channel. Look pretty good from the production samples and got a couple different paint schemes there offered. So when that comes time to be shown, I'll make sure that's included here for you. But that's all I have in terms of announcements and newsletters for this week. Hope you enjoyed. Not a ton of brand new things compared to last week since we had so many announced at Amherst. That was really cool. If you did make it this far, consider subscribing. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much to all those who've already done so. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if there's anything I may have missed or anything you're excited about in this newsletter. But with that, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.